So I want to start today with a Zen story. It's about a monk in a monastery who's extremely grumpy. Grumpy guy, never sees the good in anything. The other monks, they just kind of put up with him. And they hear about this enlightened Buddha guy who's at this other monastery, and they all decide to make the trip to go visit him. So, and the grumpy guy's like, well, I'm going because I don't believe he's really Buddha. I'm going to prove that he's not. You know, this guy's just such a downer, right? And so they go to the train station, and at the train station, there's all these orphans going around begging for food, and this guy gets really pissed about nobody taking care of these orphans. So he says, I guess I'll do it. And he goes off and starts taking care of the orphans, and the train leaves without him. Next train comes, leaves without him. Next train comes, and more orphans are starting to show up, and he puts them together, he organizes them, he's taking care of all these kids, and this is how he winds up spending like the next 10 years, is at this train station taking care of these kids over and over and over. And it softens him. He forgot all about his grumpiness because he's so in there taking care of these kids. In fact, he's so in there doing this that there's reports over where the Buddha guy is about this saint over at this train station who's taking care of all these kids. And the Buddha guy's like, well, I want to go visit him. And so the Buddha guy gets on the train and goes over and visits the monk at the train station, and the monk sees him and he's like, oh my God, and falls to his feet. And the Buddha guy goes, no, get up. I want to fall to yours. You're the saint who's been taking care of all these kids. And the guy never even realized how much he had changed until that moment, that he was a completely different guy from the one who originally got to that station and had spent his life just taking care of these kids. And I'd heard this story, and I started thinking, wow, isn't that how it's kind of worked for me? Because, and I'm not saying anybody's fallen at my feet. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the idea of how much I've changed because of my work. By being involved in what I'm doing, that it has changed me. Just this past week, I had a conversation with Carol where she was telling me how impressed she was with my listening skills and empathy. And I'm a guy who spent most of my life being told, you don't listen. So I was really shocked when she said that. And then John, I'm having a conversation with him, and he says, one of your strengths is that you don't make people wrong. And I thought, wow, I used to be the guy who made everybody wrong. I'm not that guy anymore. What happened? How did that happen, that I changed so much? From this angry man I used to be, this grumpy guy. Even my wife, Ash used to say, God, you wake up so grumpy. And I don't anymore. And so those changes that happened, I saw, has happened because of my work, because of my dedication to what it is I do. And that got me thinking about a saying I'd heard that if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Maybe you've heard that. That's never been true for me. I love what I do, and I work every day. And I find it hard work sometimes. And what I've discovered through all this is that you want to love what you do. You really do want to love what you do, like I do, right? You want to love whatever it is that you're doing. But the thing about it is you want it to support you in rising in a way that maybe a job you have or have had didn't. You want it to support you in rising. When I first met Ash, one of the things that struck me most about me comes from a movie called As Good as It Gets. There's this great scene in there between Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt. They're sitting at this table, and she's like, "You better give me a compliment." And he says, "You make me want to be a better man." Ash was the first person I was ever with who made me want to feel that way. Right? Just being with her made me want to be a better man. And then, when I thought about that, I thought that's what I want from my work. That whatever it is I'm doing wants to make me want to be a better man, wants to make me want to rise, be more than I have been. That I want my life to be that way. That any relationship I'm in, or whatever it is I'm doing, whatever it is I'm attracting in my life, what it's doing for me is making me want to be a better man. And that how powerful that is, that it's changed me the way it has. Just that desire. Right? To have that desire in your life. It doesn't matter if you're beginning your life, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 80s, 90s, you still have the opportunity to create a life that will allow you to be a better person. That will more than allow you, but actually kind of force you. Right? Kind of move you to that because that's what it takes to do that. So I'm asking, are you that engaged in what it is you're doing that it would want to move you to be more? And if you're not, I highly recommend finding that. Finding those people to be with who in their presence you want to be a better person. Who when you're at work you want to be a better person. Because that's what this world needs, right? This world doesn't need another billionaire. This world doesn't need another successful entrepreneur. We got tons of those. What we need is people who want to be better people. Because that's what inspires others to be better people, which inspires others to be better people. This is what's really possible. And so I start, so I've been looking at that, and I've been a little antsy these past couple of weeks, feeling some shift in me happening and not really clear on what it was, right? And because I want to keep growing. And I didn't, and I started feeling a little stagnant in my own growth and wanted to know what it was going to take to really start moving, and didn't know what it was going to look like. Well, this week I found out. Early in the week, like I do most mornings, I was reading through my Zen stuff, and there was something in there that struck me that was really interesting. Now, I've been saying to you week after week that that the side effects of awakening are more compassion, more love, that all you got to do is awaken and these things come along. And then I'm reading in the Zen text how enlightenment is simply the first step to taming your beingness, or what I have now labeled my beast. And I'm not thinking about beast in the sense of something bad. I actually started thinking about it in terms of my dog Buddy. Right? How I train my dog, and how you do that is with treats. And so I started thinking a lot about treats. Going, okay, well, if I'm going to train my beast, let's use treats. I've already tried the other thing of beating myself up when I did something I didn't like. I've tried that for years. It doesn't work. Maybe it's made me, embrace myself a little bit better, but it's really not been the thing that's moved me on. And so I thought, and it answered the question that a couple weeks ago, well, I guess it's more than a couple weeks at this point. Time flies, And when when Dale asked me, well, if I have all these enlightened moments, how come I'm still, you know what I said back then. I'm not going to say it again. And this was the answer, this was the answer sitting in front of me in this book. The answer is now your enlightened person, your higher self, your soul's intention needs to actually train your ego mind, or what I've decided to call beast. It needs to train it, right? And so I hadn't really thought about that before in that way. Right? This was new information for me. And I'm like, oh. And so, okay, I'm going to train this beast. I'm going to train my own dogness into being, gentler, expressing more grace. And I had an experience this week of, I think it was this week, of the some of our volunteers got in touch with Home Office about something we needed to get done, and what they wrote back was not kind. And I got very protective of my volunteers and let them know that I was not happy with what they had written to my volunteers. And so they wrote me back and said, we understand your communication, but that really wasn't very gracious how you said it. And I thought, wow. So I was unkind about their unkindness. My beast came out. That really wasn't me being that doing the training that I say I want to do, right? That just happened this week, and so I got to see for myself how I still have a lot of work to do around this, but I noticed, right? Because that's how we start. When we do stuff like that, how well will we notice? There was a time in my life where I would have gotten my back up and said, hey, you did it first. Instead, I've spent the rest of the week being extremely gracious, right? Because that's how I want to be. I hear people talk a lot about ease and grace. And it always makes me laugh because we all have our moments of ease and grace. Oh, a synchronicity falls into place and, oh God, this is wonderful how it's flowing along. And wouldn't it be great if it always just flowed like this? Yeah, right. So what's really going on is how are we expressing grace? Right? This isn't about something that happens out here in life where we get grace. I mean, it might, but that's not the real deal if we truly want to be a better person. If we want to be a better person, then it's about how we express grace. And I personally have a long way to go with that. Maybe you do too. Maybe that doesn't come naturally or easily. It certainly doesn't for me. And so that's the practice. If we want to be a better person, how gracious are we to others? In the face of maybe them not being so gracious. Because that's the testing point, right? It's easy to be gracious when somebody else is gracious first. How do we do when they're not? And how can we tame ourselves to become that person that's the new default? And it can't happen if what we do when we're not that way, we're then ungracious to ourselves. Right? Because it's got to start there. If we can't be gracious with ourselves, we're certainly not going to be gracious to others. So it's real important to look at how we are being with ourselves in this. And it isn't about those enlightened moments that we get to have. It's about the journey. The journey. Because until John and Carol pointed out what happened to me, I hadn't really noticed that I actually had the strength of not making people wrong. That had not even occurred to me until it was pointed out. or that I was really good at being empathetic and a listener. That is not things that have been said to me in the past as feedback. And so so when we get in that space of, I want to be a better person, right? When that's the space we're in, when that's the container we're creating for ourselves, that's when we get lots of chances to practice, number one. Lots of chances, at least I have, And then the second thing is we just get to keep at it. Because it is something that to build into a habit takes time, right? To build it into a habit takes time, but it's worth it. It has been for me. Whatever time it's taken for me to get here, I am so glad. And I am looking so forward to what happens next now that I've taken on this next practice. I mean, that's what it is, right? You go along, you do a practice, in playing the guitar, right? You get down a particular riff, but then it's the next riff you want to get, or whatever game you're playing in life, or whatever matters to you that you want to get better at, you get to a particular stage. In chess, they have ratings, right? As soon as I hit the next rating, I go, well, now I want to get to the next rating, because that's how it works, and it's okay, and maybe it takes a different practice to get there. It may not be the same way that got you to where you are that will get you to where you're going next. But only you can figure that out. And setting up the container of, I want to be a better person. I want to be the best person I can be. I would love to be that guy who every single time was gracious, calm. And I look really forward to seeing me getting there. And in the meantime, enjoying how far I've come already. And that's what you want to do. You want to appreciate where you are. Appreciate where you are. And then set up where you're headed next. What's your next journey? Your inner GPS is waiting to guide you. It's waiting. It wants you. You have this thing in you, this higher self, what I call soul's intention, that is dying to just pull you along to your next way of being in the world. But when you're so focused on the physical result of, I got to have this job, make this amount of money, do this, and this way, well, then you're not focused on you being a better person, because you can achieve all that stuff and not grow yourself at all. That's really possible. I've experienced it. So I know that it's possible to achieve a goal in the physical world and you not grow. Because how you got there may have been the way, there was a movie called Any Given Sunday, where there's this great speech in the middle of it by Al Pacino as the coach, who's saying, you're scraping and you're fighting for every inch. We gotta fight for every single inch. Claw at it, right? And a lot of times, isn't that how we approach whatever it is we're going after? Because that's the mindset. But that isn't the mindset that will grow you. That isn't the mindset that's going to make you a better person. That isn't the mindset that's going to allow you to be, an awakened person who's actually more compassionate, more kind, more loving, making choices based on that loving kindness. Like the Dalai Lama loves to say, be kind whenever possible. It's always possible. Well, I really look forward to that day for myself when I can see it all the time. But I love the idea that I'm seeing it more and more of the time. That soothes my soul. To know that this is what I hold as important. That it does something for me to know that I want to be a better man. For you guys, for Ash, for all of us. And so treats, I've been focusing on treats. One of my favorite treats is ash. So I told her, I said, you could support me in my growth by being my treat. Oh yeah, I'll beg. Absolutely. I have no shame. I will beg. It's a treat to go walking. You know, so I'm just looking around at what are my treats? And how can I use them to support me in distracting myself when the beast comes out in a way that's, isn't my highest and best. Just like I would with Muddy. And I thought, I don't have results of this yet, because this just occurred to me this week. So I'm not up here saying this is definitely a working strategy. I'm just saying I'm willing to try anything, and this sounds like fun. And I recommend that, when you're looking at your own growth, look at what's fun, right? Don't always take the hard road of scratching and crawling and getting that next inch. Don't do it. Take the route of what is really lightening your soul, lightening your heart. Because what I've noticed is the lighter my heart is, the easier it is to be a better person. In the midst of tough circumstances, and we all have tough circumstances we are facing and dealing with in this world, the lighter we can be with our hearts, then what we're bringing to life is exactly what the world needs. You are all exactly what the world needs. How do I know that? You showed up. You clearly are looking for the same thing I am, which is to be a better person, to open up our hearts, to lighten up in a world that can sometimes have an entirely different agenda around all that. So I invite you to join me in creating a container for yourself where what you're making the most important is being a better person. Because what I noticed is when I do that, what shows up in my life is these other things that I thought I had to fight and crawl for. And instead, people want people who want to be a better person around. They want to be around you. It's easier to get a job. It's easier to make more money because people really want to be around people who want to be better people. There's an energy it gives off, and it's beautiful. And it's available to all of us. Thank you. I love you.